Welcome to Marine Tech Talk, a podcast about how Teledyne Marine's innovative technologies are enabling scientific discoveries and commercial tasks in the world's oceans and waterways. In this fall series of podcasts, we introduce some of the winners and general entrants from the 2020 Teledyne Marine Photo Contest. Teledyne's annual photo and data contest concluded with over 80 qualified submissions that helped the company donate more than $1,200 to Save the Children as part of our charitable giving campaign. In this episode, we speak with Leah Ellis, a Habitat Biologist in the Instream Flow Program at the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Leah was one of our contestants this year in our Teledyne Marine Photo Contest, and the winner of one of our Honorable Mention Photo Awards. Leah's photo was of her team out in the elements collecting data. The mission of their program is to acquire water rights in rivers and lakes for fish habitat protection. Now here's Leah Ellis with the host of Marine Tech Talk, Melissa Rossi.
Hi, and welcome back to Marine Tech Talk. Today, we are excited to have a guest on our show from our recent Teledyne Marine Photo Contest. So our guest today is Leah Ellis, and Leah's with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Leah provided a photo for us that won honorable mention this year, but was in hot contest for a different category. And we'll talk a bit more about that. So welcome, Leah. Thanks for coming and joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So Leah, can you describe the photo that you submitted and tell us what was going on when you took that picture?
Sure. So the photo shows a field laptop with the background of Section by Section Pro software. Thank you, Teledyne. And then in the background of the computer screen, as we're performing the measurement, are my two colleagues who are out on some frozen river ice on the Aniak River in less than 10-degree conditions. And it took a lot just to get to that point.
So a couple questions for you. Was it you in the cab? I think you had mentioned that it was a tracked ATV, heated, by the way, inside the cab. Was that you inside the cab?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you have to draw straws to decide who got to stay in the warm cab and who had to stand outside on the freezing cold ice?
Good question. At this point, I had been the one responsible for figuring out how Section by Section Pro works. So I was the one with the information on how to use the software. So just by default, I got to be in the warm cab as we're shouting directions back and forth.
Win.
Yes. Win for me.
Win for you, for sure. And what were you guys doing out there on the ice?
So our program, we install stream gauges around the state with the goal to make reservations of water, which is reserving in-stream flows to attain the long-term protection and conservation of salmon habitat. So we'll figure out how much water is in the river and reserve a certain proportion of that for fish, essentially, water rights for fish. And then we have to come out and do stream discharge measurements to correlate the stream gauge, just the height of the water with the actual stream discharge. So this gauge will be in for 5 years. And we have to go out in the wintertime because the gauges don't work in the winter since it's based on pressure and there's ice covering the river. So we got to go out and drill a bunch of holes in the ice and get a rough estimate of the water flow.
So how often do you have to do that? I mean, if you're out in the ice taking these measurements, how often do you go out?
We go out, we try to get out once a month in the summer, and then in the winter, we want to go 2 or 3 times, but it kind of depends. You need to go once the river ice is solid, once you can feel safe driving out there. So, you really want to wait until December, maybe January, but it depends on the year. And then March is going to be your latest. It depends on conditions, but yeah, we want to get out. Really, if we could get once a month, that would be ideal.
Okay. And how long does I mean, is this in a really remote area? Does it take you a long time to get out to this site?
Yes. So this site, so we live in, our office is in Anchorage, which is the big hub of Alaska. A whole 300,000 people live there. And so then we fly out to this village called Aniak, which is on the Kuskokwim River. It's about a 2-hour flight. And the village is kind of a hub for the area. It's rather big. There's about 500 people there, and there's a grocery store. There's even machine shops. So there's a lot going on in Aniak, which is nice for us. So just the travel to get out there, is a limiting factor. You got to make sure you have all of your equipment, everything you need, and that it's going to be working properly, because it took a lot of time and money just to get to that point. And then once we're in Aniak, our stream gauge is about 15 miles up the river, up the Aniak River. And in the summertime, we'll use a jet boat to get there. But in the winter, we need to snow machine, that's what we call it, snowmobile, out to our site. So we had 2 snowmobiles and then this tracked UTV to haul all of our gear out there, which was a fun adventure. So then, and typically there's not a lot of trails going that far upriver, so we did have to break some trail, but it wasn't too far out of town. But still, a lot of things could go wrong before the actual obtainment of the measurement.
And I assume this is a pretty good-sized tracked ATV, right? Because all 3 of you, is it 3 of you that go out on this deployment?
So there are 4 of us total. So we hire a local to help. Well, it's his tracked ATV to help us get out there, and then we rented the 2 snow machines from him. So 2 people sat in the UTV, and then 1 person each was on the snow machine.
And are the snow machines covered and heated too, like the tracked ATV, or were they outside in the elements?
Definitely outside in the elements, but the handlebars are heated, which is quite a nice feature.
Woo! I guess it would be. Anything that's heated probably would be, looking at the picture, a nice feature to have.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. No, and so when you took this picture, did you have the thought that you would submit it for the contest, or did you just see the contest and say, I have this cool picture?
Definitely the latter. We just take lots of pictures when we go out in the field, because you forget things easily and pictures help. But when the contest highlighted the adversity award, and this moment made me think about that, just how much work it took out. It could have gone well with the teamwork award too, but how much work it took to get out to this place that, a lot of elements could have gone wrong, but it actually went pretty smoothly overall. So it was just, a lot of prior work before we made this jump up to a successful stream pro measurement on the Aniak River.
Well, on first measure, when you say that, I'm relieved that things went smoothly, because that means that I'm assuming our equipment worked well, which is score for us, right? And for you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I was thinking that when you submitted that photo, it was one of actually the photos that we looked at the story and said, it's a shame when we do these photo contests, because we've never done the podcast. The podcast actually is new this year for us, so we've never actually told the stories behind all of these photos. And some customers send, full stories, and others just give us an idea of where they are. But when we saw the stories, we thought, oh, what a shame, because people don't really get to hear the whole full story. So your description of what you were doing out there is one of the reasons that we started this whole story behind the photo podcast series this year. So kudos to you. Thank you for that. It was a great way to remind us that everybody doesn't get to hear the full story behind the photos. I will let you know that you were in tight running for the Adversity Award. As a matter of fact, it was between you and one other photo. And it's just that darn guy that was hanging out in a cage over the rapids that won out over you. I'm sorry.
We'll have to work harder next year then.
Yeah. So now, next year, as you're looking at all of your deployments or whatnot, you're going to take some really good photos for next year's contest, right?
Yeah, certainly.
this one was great too. So I want to thank you so much, Leah, for joining us today. Really appreciate your participating and being willing to share the story. Great photo and a great story. So wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks for listening to the Marine Tech Talk podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the work that the Alaska Department of Fish and Game are doing, we'll put a link to their website and their Facebook account in the notes for this episode. If you have any questions or comments about this show, you can email host Melissa Rossi at marinetechtalk@teledyne.com. If you like this podcast, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing this show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.